Okay, Mask of the Black Rose and Chosen of the Wolf skins. I think it's I want to talk about them because I think they are interesting and they have some pretty interesting implications as well. I realized I spelled mask wrong, but fuck that. I mean, you know what it says, so it's fine. So to start off, quickly I'll just go over like the main design pieces about each of the characters, and then I'll go on to some other points I want to talk about, right? But let's start with what the Black Rose actually is, because it's a shadow cabal of NOXUS. It's the Illuminati of the League of Legends universe. They sort of lead NOXUS from the shadows, and they have this very, you know, shadow cabal. Yeah, I guess they have the shadow cabal aesthetic, stuff like, or rather akin to stuff like, what are they called? The owl, the coven, the Batman villains, the owls. What are they called? Ah, well, forget about it. But the owl guys, right? So what is important when you want to try to create skins for the Black Rose is that you make sure that the characters sort of, they can't be individualistic, but they need to like be sort of, I forgot the word, subtle. There we go. They need to be subtle about their appearance, right? To make to make sure they don't draw too much attention, but they can still be individualistic because they need to sort of charm and use their silver tongue and their manipulative methods to actually achieve their goals, right? So going off of Elise first, she's generally very down to earth. She has the really cool mask that I love, which has the multiple eyes to depict the spider thing. But other than that, there's not a whole lot to say. I think she achieves sort of the design goals you would want to look for. Renata Glask is surprising because she doesn't actually have anything to do with the Black Rose compared to the rest of the champions. But I do love the entire rose petal motif of of the crown of her dress. I think that's really really nice, and I actually kind of wanted it on one of the main Black Rose members, like as a base design. So that it ends up on Renata, who's arguably the only one that's not like somewhat canon. That's a little bit silly, but I do like the skin in general. I do think her mask is really good because it sort of teases that whatever comes out of her mouth, since it's masked, is not like necessarily true. Um, so I think that's really cool. Vladimir also, sure, that looks like something Vladimir would wear. His mask sort of looks like a mosquito to me, which is like a perfect fit, right? Um, but other than that, yeah, he's also just looking like Vladimir normally would with his Wild Rift hairstyle and just a different outfit, right? So I think it suits the character. We'll talk about Samira last actually because she's probably the one I have the most to say about, I think. So let's go on to Katarina. Right. Um, so Katarina is, she's good, right? I mean, there's no big glaring weakness about her at all. It's just, there's nothing spectacular either. I think the skin is really nice. Um, but yeah, that's not a whole lot to say. She sort of fits the entire Black Rose thing. She's taking the, it's like, how do you say? She's taking the character of a dancer actually, which is very interesting because that's a different type of. You could use that in manipulative ways, right? So definitely think that suits her really well. Actually, I'll bump her up just because of that alone. I'll like raise how well I like her. Then we have Ezreal, and Ezreal looks like he's been invited or that he has infiltrated the Black Rose, but I'm more leaning towards the fact that he has invited it, or he was invited to it, because in his current lore, the Black Rose have actually been keeping tabs on him. I think they might have been interested in like his gauntlet or something like that. And not only have they then been interested in him, you can't just infiltrate the Black Rose. It's the most secretive, intelligent organization on the planet. You don't just beat LeBlanc like that. So I think he's been invited, and then he's like rejecting it afterwards, going like, I had my fun," or whatever. And I think that's really cool. Obviously, it doesn't actually have a gauntlet on this skin right here, but I think that's more so for aesthetic purposes than him like giving it away or something. Um, but yeah, I think it's a really cool skin. I think it does a good job. Then we have Samira. Also, like one more thing about Israel, we can see that he has space marks. So this is canon Israel basically, in either a what if timeline or a future timeline, or rather a future occurrence, right? And I assume most of these characters are basically borderline canon or like a future, timeline or whatever. At least for Elise and Vladimir, already borderline canon. Israel, it makes sense for Katarina, maybe. I'd rather like her to go somewhere else, but she's related to the Black Rose through her mother and Cassiopeia, right? Who's her sister. All right, so let's get to Samira. So Samira works for someone who works for the Black Rose, and I think the one she works for might also just straight up be Black Rose. I don't think Samira knows, and I think this is more of like an actual like what if kind of deal. I don't think this is something Samira is ever gonna do, because the skin, as you might feel like something is weird about it, and you'd be right because something is weird about it. Samira is this very very obvious characters in some ways, right? She gets stuff done. She doesn't think too much about it. She wants to look good while doing the job, right? She's an assassin for hire, right? But not in an intellectual way. She's more of like a hired gun who lives each day in the present, right? And just drinks when she's got the money, and when she doesn't, she goes and kills someone, and she doesn't ask too many questions. So that's the kind of character that she is. Also, we can see that she has muscles, and the way she has her muscles, also like, um, what was I going to? I was going to comment on like her tattoos, right? So the way that she has her muscles and her tattoos also sort of it paints her as a very physical person who's not necessarily super intellectual, and her headpiece is also very elaborate, and like it's very striking the way that she's done her hair and her headpiece, and those are also things that sort of stand out too much for what I would like for Black Rose skin, because like she is a mercenary that likes to make something out of herself, and likes to make a show, or yeah, yeah, pull a show when she does her work, right? So I just don't think that she fits into this Black Rose schematic thing. um I also think her pose is kind of weak, because like, if anything, she should have been the dancer, right? But I think that's fine that she isn't. I just think that she's a weak suit for the skin line, even if she does have black rose ties. All right, so that brings me to also. Well, this is something else. I'll comment on this in a minute. It brings me to some interesting things about the skin line. So Katarina is receiving a standalone prestige skin right after she also had the Chosen of the Wolf skin, which by itself is a very unique situation. Um, I touched a bit about upon Israel and Renata Glass, right? Renata specifically, she's like it is clearly supposed to be the canon version of Renata. That is just like a Black Rose member instead. How that ends up happening or how that ended up happening um, is left to interpretation. I'm pretty sure it's just an alternate reality kind of deal, right? However, some of the others, as I also mentioned, could be more realistic. Yeah, so these skins are not necessarily canon, but what if? And then there are some implication about the future of law skins and what that is going to look like. So firstly, I want to touch a bit on the Black Rose aesthetic that has already been established. So the skins that we've received, they go in a different direction because instead of being more, I want to say, medieval, they are instead very high fashion, right? And I think I don't. High fashion works for it, but I think it's a bit too modern. Some of the things that they're wearing, and also some of it just doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. Um, like gold plating on the midriff of Renata Glass and stuff like that. I think that doesn't really make a lot of sense. Elisa's outfit is fine. Vladimir's is maybe a little too modern, and Estel's is maybe a little too modern. Katarina's, I also think, is sort of fine. There's like the entire gold fucking, what's that called? Like the leg thing. Why don't I? Okay, whatever. Like the gold plated leg, basically, which also has those like thorn still motifs up her leg. That's just silly. That's just weird. Like, don't think too much about it. She can't dance in those things. She can't even move in them. We just need to not think of too much about it. It looks really stupid, actually. Now in hindsight, the more I think about it. But the rest of her is fine in comparison. Samira's is also a bit too modern, I feel. And I feel like this aesthetic works a bit better for it, right? Not everyone has to be this secretive, elaborate spy, or not elaborate, but these secretive people. They can just be normal people that know each other and like high society stuff. But I don't really have a big issue with that. I feel like the masks are a good visual build around of the thematic. Okay, so let's in particular go about the Katarina Prestige standalone situation and the implications for what future law skins are going to look like, because that's basically what this is, right? So Katarina received Chosen of the Wolf, which is also a law skin based on sort of, because it's like down the line of Spirit Blossom, right? These are Noxian mythos built around the idea of kindred and the wolf. And you might say, well, why is Pantheon there? And sure, why is Pantheon there? I feel like Pantheon would probably also, know about the wolf and worship the wolf just in his own Targonian way, right? Um, but Pantheon has an interesting position where he's much like Renata Glass, where the characters themselves don't actually have much to do with Noxus and this specific aesthetic, yet they are still there, which is really cool because that means in the future we are actually going to get more like region swapped skins just like these. All of it doesn't have to be Noxus champions. That will also sort of diminish the idea of like the Noxus season, which we are going into. That's why we're getting these skins at least, right? The Black Rose ones. Because the cool thing about them is we're going to get skins for each thematic, and we're probably going to get more than just one set of skins. This is a good example to start off on, right? Because the season is starting and we are getting the Black Rose skins. However, we just got Chosen of the Wolf, which is basically the same, like the same idea. Like it's the Noxus season. We're going to create some Noxus related skins, and that's what these are. And so I have a feeling that these were not pushed, but like they were well, I suppose they were pushed up in the release timeline. So they were actually originally supposed to be a part of the Noxus season, but they were just released earlier, right? And the really cool thing about that is, in the past, we've waited so long for lore skins. Originally, it was only like stuff like Hextech and Guardians of the Sands, and then some one-off lore skins, right? And generally like region palette aesthetic skins. But then they did the Spirit Blossom thing, and that was a success. And so they sort of started pushing it. And then we got Ruined and Sentinels of Light. And obviously those things kind of, like, the story fell very, very flat, and for a bunch of reasons. But after Riot tried these things, they hit their mark with the Arcane skins. And after realizing that the Arcane skins sell really, really well, they sort of, I think they are starting to understand how they can actually profit off of the lore and tie it into like and skin thematics, because that is what these are. And they have, both of them have been released with 3 patches between them. Originally, we had Spirit Blossom 1 year, then we had to wait like 1 to 2 years for the next batch, which was Ruined and Sentinels. And then 1 more year for like Arcane, and then I think it was 2 more years for Arcane batch 2, or 3 years actually. So it's like we've been waiting a long time between these skins, yet this time we got them right after each other. And one of them is specifically straight up just canon, which is Kindred. And I suppose Ambassadors is canon now, actually, too. And that's really interesting. Because what that means for the future is that we're not just going to get, one set of lore skins or whatever. We're going to get a bunch. And we already knew that we were going to get more than whatever would, I think we were told in some way that there would be more than just like the release start skins, like the entire season would kind of revolve around Noxus. But regardless, being shown that this is like the level they are willing to go to is incredible. At least to me, I find it extremely compelling. Even if I do not fully like the skins, but then again, like, we don't have to like feel the pressure that this is going to be definitive or canon, or like how the characters are going to end up being in the future, because Arcane is the end all be all. That's the canon story, and they've proven to us that they are very much willing to change characters, well, their stories, their designs, who they are, to paint a compelling character that has a great design and a good story. And they don't. We really gotta trust these guys. They really don't try to fuck anything up. Um, a lot of people have been sad about Victor and the Warwick changes, but like these characters have become extremely compelling, and it's not that the characters have fundamentally changed that much in terms of who they are, right? Um, the other examples are some of the other characters, like they were never this fleshed out. Caitlyn changed a lot too, but no one is having a problem with it because the character design didn't change much. People want to be able to recognize the character and what they associate with with the character, right? Um, but we have Arcane and in general like the new sort of entertainment team. They are going to be the ones that take care of all the big stuff. So even if you don't like this version of Black Rose or you don't think these characters should have been a part of it or whatever, you don't have to panic. This isn't definitive in any way. These are just aesthetics that borrow from the lore, and I think that's extremely cool. Um, the other thing is that Chosen of the Wolf had Swain get both the original skin and the prestige skin, but now we're in a situation where Katarina received a standalone prestige, which by itself is really cool. Because that means that for a thematic, a character can still have two different skins if they are closely tied to the thematic. And I think that's a good way to go about it. I really think so. Also, because it's basically just whenever a prestige skin comes out for a champion like that, why would you wear the original version if you have the prestige version, right? At least I at least think that most players feel that way. So now instead, you just get straight up a prestige version and the non-prestige. That's a different aesthetic. So it's just better business, right? I'm very fond of these skin lines and like what they imply, because if this is the direction we're going to get even more skins than just this. We're going to get more. We might be getting, Cyan Grey Legion zombie stuff. We might be getting just general Noxian soldier stuff. We might be getting Reckoner stuff with Draven and the sort of the Legends of Runeterra Reckoners, right? There's so many ways to go, and regardless of where we're gonna end up, I just feel like it's nascent the whole. I feel like they fucking nailed it. If this is what we are going to continue doing, because that means that we are going to have a thematic skin line, then we are probably going to have two or three like regular skin lines, and then another thematic skin line, and that's just going to be so dope, in my opinion. But also, I want to talk about LeBlanc and Cassiopeia, because Black Rose and LeBlanc is literally the matriarch of it, and Cassiopeia is a member just like Vladimir and Elise. So why are they not here, and while Israel and Renata are? So I'm going. Spoiler alert! If you don't want any spoilers for what's gonna happen, you fast forward like a minute from now. But basically, what is gonna happen is that LeBlanc is going to receive a rework. Okay, this has been leaked and data mined. So she's gonna get reworked. We don't know of what size, but we do know thematically she's gonna be very different. Because it's the snake, it's the year of the snake in China. Cassiopeia is definitely going to be saved for that. Most likely, or rather, hopefully, a legendary skin, right? Because that would sort of make sense. But that's why that they are not a part of the skin line. So what about Mordecai? Because we also know that he's going to have an upcoming skin. And why wasn't he a part of the Chosen of the Wolf? I just realized I told people to forward into something that could be considered another spoiler. Oh well, that's I'm gonna have to live with that, and so are you. Um, yeah, sorry. But why wasn't he chosen for part of it? Or rather, why wasn't he a part of Chosen of the Wolf? So, as we all know, the story of Mordecai is that he thought that when he was going to die, if he really lived up to his full potential and really became the conqueror that he thought he should be, he would, you know, be rewarded in the afterlife with a golden feast and party with the gods or whatever he believed in, right? And so he created his own realm because he was really fucking mad about the fact that this wasn't the case. And so Chosen of the Wolf, he's like he's the ultimate champion of the wolf, the absolute pinnacle of what the wolf can have. Yet he wasn't chosen. So what the fuck happened? I believe what happened, and the reason that he's genuinely not, like, he wasn't actually considered for the skin line is actually because of lore reasons. That he might have believed in a different mythology or his own thing and sort of rejected the wolf. And so, because he believed in his own thing, the wolf couldn't claim him. And so he just ended up in the death realm because there wasn't enough like belief in whatever Mordecai believed in for that kind of afterlife to be able to exist. So he just ended up in like the gray realm, which he then bent to his will. The reason we know that he's getting a skin, by the way, it's because you can see Artakan, like the new mob. Artakan, Bringer of Ruin, he has a quote towards Mordekaiser, and specifically a new skin of his. Most likely going to be Sanusal, let's be real. And the reason Artakan is close to Mordekaiser is because Artakan was a pet of Mordekaiser, along with Tibbers, or rather the demon that inhabits Tibbers. Mordekaiser sort of, he had those two demons as his pets, literally. So that's why that's why Artakan has a quote towards him, right? But this art piece of Mordecai as a alive human, as an alive human, was released a while ago when he was released in Legends of Runeterra. And all of us thought back then that he was going to get this as a skin, because obviously it has been designed in a way that it's very clear they intend to use this. But it was never released. But now is the perfect time, and you know, it actually makes sense for them to release it now. And they probably also saved it for this moment. So what I'm expecting is that this might be a legendary skin too. And with this skin, there should be a lot of other skins as well, in like a Noxian armored aesthetic, like skin thematic. And I think that's amazing, because that sort of, it doesn't fully confirm my thoughts about these skins lines, but it sort of points in that direction that we are going to get multiple, and they are going to come out often, like different thematics for the specific thematic we are on. and I'm so excited for that. I'm so excited for that. I think this is so cool. In the future, we might be getting, mage seeker skins for the Marcia, or we might be getting sort of like clan swap skins in Freljord, or we might be getting, I don't know, like shadow, what are they called, like sets or thing, like shadow assassins or whatever, and all these kind of things, like the Kinku, Shadow Wilds, this and that and everything. It's just gonna be so cool, in my opinion. I'm so excited for all this stuff. Yeah. I don't think I have much else to say about the skins or the subject right now. Yeah, I think that's it for now. I'd like to begin to try and go into evaluating like character designs and talking about those. So if there's a specific champion you'd like me to start out with, you just say whoever, and then I'll try and analyze the character design, give my opinions on it, maybe talk a bit about what could be improved and stuff like that, right? So thanks so much for watching. It's really fun to do these kinds of videos. So if you do enjoy them, be sure to like, I don't fucking know, like comment or like or subscribe or something. I don't fucking know. I like doing it as long as I get like the dopamine from like that's a lot of likes. I I enjoy doing these as long as I get the dopamine from the statistics, right? Because if I know people watch these, then I want to do more of it. I enjoy talking about these stuff. I'm gonna finish the video. I'm sorry. See you guys.